Why Married Men Choose You, the Hidden Psychology Behind It, Carl Jung. Have you ever wondered why some married men seem to choose you almost magnetically, even when they should be completely committed to someone else? Is there something in you that they can't find at home? The answer may surprise you deeply. Carl Jung discovered hidden patterns in the male psyche that explain this mysterious attraction. It's not about physical beauty or obvious seduction. It's something much deeper and more disturbing. You're activating dormant archetypes within them, awakening parts of the soul that have been stifled by conventional marriage. In this video, I'm going to reveal the invisible psychological mechanisms that make you irresistible to committed men. You'll discover what repressed part of the male psyche you represent, why it creates an almost uncontrollable attraction, and what it reveals about yourself. Get ready, because what I'm going to share will completely change your understanding of relationships and human desire. 1. The void you fill without knowing it. Within every married man there is an empty space that he himself does not perceive. This emptiness did not come out of nowhere. It was formed gradually, silently, as he built his married life. At the beginning of the marriage, everything seems complete and satisfying. But over time, something strange happens. Parts of it begin to disappear, not dramatically, but gradually, like sand running through your fingers. This emptiness has a name in depth psychology. It is the absence of essential parts of the personality that have been sacrificed in the name of stability. When a man enters marriage, he often abandons fundamental aspects of who he really is. He abandons dreams that seem too foolish, desires that did not fit into the routine, emotions that were considered immature. He molds himself to fit the role of responsible husband, reliable provider, predictable partner. The problem is that these abandoned parts do not die. They lie dormant in the unconscious, waiting. And when you show up in his life, something extraordinary happens. Those parts begin to awaken. You're not doing anything on purpose. In fact, it is precisely its naturalness that creates the effect. You represent everything he left behind. Her spontaneity mirrors that of him who was buried. His emotional freedom echoes the one he lost. His ability to be authentic without apologizing awakens in him a deep nostalgia for when he was like that too. This emptiness works as a psychological vacuum, and nature hates vacuums. Then, unconsciously, he is pulled towards him with a force that he cannot rationally explain. He may come up with logical justifications for being around you, but the truth is much simpler and scarier. You're filling a hole in his soul that he didn't even know existed. And the more time passes, the more he realizes that by his side, he feels whole in a way he hasn't felt in years. 2. You as a mirror of the soul, not lived by him. Every human being carries within him two lives, the one that was lived and the one that could have been. Depth psychology calls this second life unfulfilled potential. For a married man, this alternate life is often locked in a mental basement, forgotten under layers of responsibilities and choices made long ago. But it does not disappear. It is still there, pulsing softly, waiting for any opportunity to manifest itself. When you enter his life, something surprising happens. You become a living mirror of this unlived soul. Not because you are perfect or special in some magical way, but because you carry qualities that he has abandoned. Maybe it's your courage to take risks without fear of judgment. Maybe it's the way you express emotions without social filters. Or maybe it's simply your refusal to fit into molds that don't make sense to you. This reflex works powerfully in the male unconscious. He looks at you and sees all the versions of himself that have been left behind. See the artist who gave up art to have a stable job. See the adventurer who exchanged trips for mortgage payments. You see the emotionally open man who has learned to suppress feelings in order to appear strong and trustworthy. And this recognition creates a magnetic attraction that he cannot control. The most fascinating thing is that this happens completely outside the field of consciousness. He doesn't think to himself, "This woman represents my unlived soul." No, he just feels an inexplicable connection, a sense that by his side he can be who he really is. By his side, the masks fall, social expectations dissolve, and for the first time in a long time, he experiences the feeling of being truly alive. You become dangerous not by calculated seduction, but by authenticity. You're living the life he gave up living, and the more he watches you being free, the more he misses that freedom. The more he sees you being truthful, the more he realizes how much he has been faking, and it is precisely this painful perception that creates the obsession. If you're ready to uncover the unconscious patterns that pull you into the lives of married men, and finally break the cycle that keeps draining your power, access the Jung Method. The link is pinned in the first comment. Awaken your shadow. Reclaim your strength. 3. The anima archetype and its magnetic connection. There is, within every man, an unconscious feminine image. This image is not a real woman, but a psychological composition formed by all the female experiences he has had since childhood. The first woman who shaped this image was her mother. Then came other female figures, teachers, first loves, characters from stories that marked him. All these experiences have merged into a single internal image that works as an invisible guide to what he seeks in the feminine. This image plays a fundamental role in the male psyche. It is the bridge between his conscious and unconscious worlds. It is through it that he accesses deep emotions, intuitions, and creative parts of the personality. When this image is active and healthy, man feels complete, inspired, connected with deeper layers of himself. But when it becomes dormant or repressed, it becomes mechanical, empty, disconnected from the soul itself. Here's the secret. You've activated that image inside it. And when that happens, the attraction isn't just physical or emotional, it is archetypal. It's as if you had turned on a switch in his unconscious that had been turned off for years. Suddenly, he goes back to feeling things he thought he had lost forever. He has vivid dreams again. He perceives beauty in the little things again. He feels that creative restlessness that made him feel alive when he was younger. You didn't plan for it. He did not study manuals on how to activate male archetypes. You are simply being who you are. But it turns out that who you are resonates perfectly with this internal image of him. Perhaps it's his unique blend of strength and vulnerability. Maybe it's the way you balance independence with the ability to connect deeply. Or maybe it's something even more subtle in your energy that matches exactly what was missing in his life. This archetypal connection explains why the attraction he feels seems so overwhelming. It's not just desire for you as an individual person. It is his unconscious recognizing in you the key to parts of his own soul that were locked. And the more time he spends near you, the more those inner doors open and the more impossible it becomes for him to move away. 4. The psychological freedom you represent. Marriage, no matter how loving it is at first, often turns into an invisible prison. Not a physical prison, but a psychological one. It's the unspoken expectations, the rigid social roles, the constant need to keep up appearances. A married man lives under the weight of always being the provider, the protector, the pillar of stability. He cannot falter. He cannot show weakness. He cannot express doubts about the choices he has made. Over time, these pressures create heavy armor around his personality. He learns to control every word, every gesture, every emotional expression. It learns to be predictable because predictability is security. He learns to repress impulses because impulses are dangerous to the family structure. And slowly, without realizing it, he goes from being a whole person to becoming just one function, the husband. Then you show up. And everything changes. You don't require him to be strong all the time. It doesn't need him to have all the answers. Don't expect it to fit any preset mold. In your presence, it can simply exist without having to prove anything. You can laugh too loudly. You can admit fears. It may reveal thoughts that you would never share at home because they would be considered inappropriate or troubling. This freedom is intoxicating. It's like breathing fresh air after years inside a closed room. By her side, he rediscovers parts of himself that he thought had died. He rediscovers the sense of humor that he abandoned because he seemed immature. He rediscovers the ability to feel intense emotions without shame. He rediscovers the possibility of being spontaneous without calculating every consequence. You become a psychological territory where he can let his guard down. And this creates a powerful emotional dependency. Because once one experiences true freedom, after years of imprisonment, going back to prison becomes almost unbearable. Each time he returns home, the armor weighs a little more. Each time he has to go back to being just the functional husband, the pain increases. And every time he thinks of you, he reminds him that there is a place where he can be whole. 5. Why you activate the repressed wild masculine. Within every civilized man, there is a sleeping wolf. We're not talking about aggressiveness or violence, but about a primitive, instinctive, vital energy. It is that part of him that acts on impulse, that seeks adventure, that connects with desires without asking permission from reason. It is the masculine in its purest state, before being domesticated by social rules and family expectations. Traditional marriage often requires this wolf to be sedated. Married life values the man who is controlled, the man who plans, the man who sacrifices his instincts for the collective good. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Families need stability, children need predictability. But the price of this civilization is high. Man loses touch with his essential vitality. He becomes too domesticated, too contained, too dead inside. You awaken that wolf. Not because it is wild or chaotic, but because it carries an energy that does not ask permission to exist. Their femininity is neither tamed nor overpolished. You don't follow scripts about how a woman should behave, and this activates in him a primitive response that he has not felt in years. It is as if his body and his psyche send direct signals to his instinct, completely ignoring the civilized and rational layer. When he's around you, something visceral happens. Blood flows faster. The senses become sharper. He feels more like a man in the primordial sense of the word, not in the social sense. And that feeling is addictive because it reminds you of being really alive, not only existing and fulfilling obligations, but vibrating with vital energy, feeling the body, feeling pure desire, feeling that hunger for life that he thought he had lost forever. The fascinating thing is that this activation does not need physical contact. It can happen just by the way you move, how you talk, how you look at him. His presence is enough to awaken what was dormant, and once awake, this wild male no longer wants to go back into hibernation. He wants to stay alive. He wants to continue feeling this intensity, and naturally, he associates this intensity with you, creating an almost physical need for your presence. 6. The unconscious projection that creates obsession. The human mind has an extraordinary ability to project internal contents into the external world. It works like this. When we have qualities, desires, or parts of the personality that we can't recognize in ourselves, we unconsciously project them onto other people. And then we start to see in these people what actually exists within us, but which we deny or do not know. When a married man develops an obsession with you, it's rarely just about who you really are. Much of this attraction is projection. He is putting into you aspects of his own psyche that he lost or never fully developed. You become the canvas on which he projects his unfulfilled dreams, his lost freedom, his dormant vitality, his repressed authenticity. The dangerous thing about this dynamic is that the more he projects, the more intense the feeling becomes. Because he's not just attracted to you as a real person with flaws and limitations. He's in love with the idealized version that exists in his head. This version carries all the qualities he would like to have, all the experiences he would like to live, all the aspects of life he misses. And as you serve as a hook for these projections, he starts to believe that you are the answer to everything that is wrong in his life. This explains why he may seem obsessed even without knowing you deeply. Because obsession is not based on real knowledge. It is based on psychological fantasy. He has created a mental image of who you are, fueled far more by your own unconscious desires than by the reality of who you really are. And that image shines so brightly in his mind that it completely overshadows the real woman in front of him. The irony is that the more you try to be authentic and show your imperfect sides, the more he can twist that to fit the fantasy. If you show vulnerability, he interprets it as unique emotional depth. If you set limits, he sees it as admirable strength. If you make mistakes, he romanticizes it as charming humanity. Everything fits into the internal narrative that he has built because projection is a very powerful mechanism for distorting reality. And here's the uncomfortable truth. As long as he's designing, he'll never be able to really see you. You remain a symbol, a representation, an archetype. And this is precisely the dynamic that feeds the obsession, because symbols have no limits. Archetypes do not disappoint, and costumes can be perfect in a way that real people never can be. 7. The role of the persona and its dangerous authenticity. Every human being wears social masks. These masks are not necessarily lies, but adaptations that we make to function in society. At work, we wear the mask of the competent professional. With the family, the mask of the responsible child or parent. In public, the mask of the polite and controlled person. Psychology calls this a persona, and it is absolutely necessary for life in society. The problem begins when a man completely identifies with his masks and forgets who he really is underneath them. In marriage, especially a long marriage, this is extremely common. He becomes so accustomed to wearing the mask of his husband that he eventually no longer knows where the mask ends and where the real man begins. He acts the way wives, in-laws, children, and society expect him to act. And year after year, the real person disappears beneath this layer of automatic behaviors. You represent danger precisely because you don't wear masks in the same way. Not that you're totally unfiltered or socially inadequate, but there is an authenticity in his way of being that he no longer finds in anyone around. You're not trying to impress. It's not calculating every word to make the right impression. She is not concerned with being the perfect version of anything. You simply are. This authenticity works like a psychological virus that infects his rigid persona. When he's close to you, the masks start to crack. He finds himself saying things that he would normally censor. He finds himself laughing in ways that he would repress at home. He finds himself expressing opinions that he would keep hidden. It is as if his presence gave him permission to be imperfect, contradictory, human. And this is simultaneously liberating and terrifying for him. Liberating because it can finally breathe without the heavy armor of the persona. Terrifying because he realizes how much he has lived as a character instead of as a person. Its authenticity exposes the falsity of his life. And the more time spent with you, the more painful it becomes to return to the world of masks. That's perhaps the deepest reason why you become irresistible. It's not about beauty or charm, it's about truth. In her presence, he experiences something rare and precious, the possibility of being genuine. And once one tastes this freedom, everything that is false becomes unbearable. You're not competing with his wife. It is competing with years of social conditioning and psychological repression. And in this competition, authenticity always wins. 8. What this attraction reveals about your own unconscious. So far, we have talked about what happens in his psyche, but there's an uncomfortable truth that needs to be told. This pattern also reveals something profound about you, because attraction is never one-sided. When you become magnetic to married men on a recurring basis, it's not just about them projecting onto you, it's also about what you're unconsciously seeking. There is a possibility that you are attracting unavailable men because they are psychologically safe. Safe not in the sense of stability, but in the sense that they will never demand total commitment from you. A married man has natural limits. He cannot be fully present. It cannot build a complete future with you. And for some women, that's unconsciously comforting, because it keeps the relationship in a zone where she never has to fully reveal herself or risk total vulnerability. Or maybe you carry deep wounds related to self-worth. Women who don't feel deserving of full love often settle for emotional crumbs, and a married man offers just that, emotional intensity combined with practical impossibility. It's the perfect recipe for keeping the wound active without ever having to actually heal it, because while he can't be completely with you, you have the perfect excuse not to work on deeper issues about intimacy and worthiness. There's yet another dimension. Maybe you're drawn to the drama and intensity that impossible situations create. The human psyche sometimes confuses intensity with depth, chaos with passion, suffering with meaning. And relationships with married men are a guarantee of constant intensity. The prohibition, the secrecy, the impossibility, all this creates an addictive emotional charge that can mask the absence of true connection. The question you need to ask yourself is sincere and painful. Why are you available to unavailable men? What inside you resonates with this dynamic? What unresolved emotional need is being fueled by this situation? Because as long as you think this is just about him being attracted to you, you're ignoring half the equation. You're also choosing, even if unconsciously, you are also participating in this dance. And here's the most important part. Understanding this isn't about guilt or judgment. It's about awareness, because only through awareness can you decide if you want to keep repeating this pattern or if you're ready for something different. Only through consciousness can you distinguish between real connection and mutual projection. Only through consciousness do you stop being a victim of your own unconscious dynamics and become a conscious author of your own life. This magnetic attraction that married men feel for you is a psychological mirror on both sides. It shows you his arrest, but it also shows you, if you're willing to look honestly, at your own internal prisons. And perhaps the greatest gift this situation can give you is not the validation of being desired, but the opportunity to see deeper within yourself.